evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your meal, and welcome to Agenda Alexandria. I'm Terry Hauser, and it's my honor to serve as chair of Agenda this season. Of course, right after I agreed to take the helm, I got a phone call from Russ Bailey. He said, Terry, I have some bad news, never a good sign. I said, what is it? He said, the Holiday Inn is closing. What did I say? Can I quit and then they'll take us back? No. So we had to find a new place to go. And we not only have a new season, but a new home. And I'm very grateful for our board members, especially Alan Dubois and Donna Walker-James, and our executive director, Sherry Brown, who have been working hard behind the scenes throughout the summer to get things in place. And I'd like to begin tonight, I think I saw them here, by introducing you to the staff here at the Hermitage, who have been absolutely wonderful. Our servers, Victor and Zayed, thank you so much. And a big thanks also to Jody Manor, Jeffrey Allen, and the Bittersweet staff, who were responsible for our wonderful meal. And thank everyone for making this an easy transition. We're also delighted to have Derek and Rodney back to film our programs. And as a reminder, you can catch them on channels 69 and 70, Monday and Saturday at 9 p.m. and Wednesday at 10 a.m. Tonight, Agenda Alexandria kicks off a strong new season with a focus on the arts. We hope the information provided by this and all our programs will help you be in the know about what's happening here in Alexandria and help inform future actions as we work together to make this great city even better. We couldn't produce our programs without the support of our wonderful sponsors for this season. And if you're here, please stand up and be recognized. The Alexandria Chamber of Commerce, we have Ed Velarde here from the board. Thank you, Ed. Ann Wynn with State Farm Insurance. Barbara Anderson of Life Estate Planning and Law Center. David Speck of Speck Caudron Investment Group, Wells Fargo Advisors. Donna, our wonderful bartender, and Tobin James of Honest Air Heating and Air Conditioning. Gant Redmond of Redmond, Peyton, and Braswell. Thank you, Gant. The Hermitage of Northern Virginia. Jerry Vernon and the Alexandria Gazette Packet. Willem Pollack and Charlotte Hall of the Potomac River Boat Company. And William D. Ewell. I'd like to also recognize a couple of very special guests we have today. Our Vice Mayor, Allison Silverberg. And former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore. Thank you for joining us, Governor. You may have noticed the resource table over on the side of the room. For those of you who are serving on a city board, commission, or task force, we invite you to share materials on that table. Just give them to Sherry at the welcome table or to anyone wearing name badges with red ribbons. These are our Agenda Alexandria board members, and I'd like to ask them to stand now and be recognized. Board members. Thank you all. If you haven't already joined or renewed your membership to Agenda Alexandria, now is the ideal time. Forms are available at both the welcome table and the resource table, and Sherry will be happy to take your money. It's just $35 for the year. We also still have a few advertising and sponsorship opportunities to be featured in our directory and on our website. You can see Sherry about that as well. Everyone who joins Agenda tonight will be included in our membership directory of movers and shakers in Alexandria. You don't want to be left out. And please take a couple of forms to share with friends who might be interested. We really have some great programs coming up this season. We'll be examining key components of our infrastructure, our aging sewer system, our fire stations and equipment, and our congested transportation grid. We'll open a discussion about what happens now that the Gen-On plant on the Potomac River has closed. We'll take a look at Alexandria's history of scandalous libations from colonial times to present day, maybe even have a few samples. And we have a very special fireside chat planned to close out the season. Tonight's program focuses on the impact of the arts in Alexandria, including an update on the status of the Torpedo Factory. As a reminder, if you have a question, please use the colored paper on your tables to write it down. And the program chairs have said, please, everyone, take the time to write legibly. We've had some struggles in the past. Board members will collect your questions at the end of the presentation, and our speakers will respond. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to our program chairs, Rosalind Bovey, Alan Dubow, and Sherry Simmons-Boulari, and to invite our speakers to take their places on the stage. And while they're being seated, we have some great door prizes tonight, and we're going to draw, for the first of those, a set of cards from Nina Tessera Photography. And here's the prize, and do I get to draw?
Sure,
Ooh, President's privilege. Doris Gazin. Doris?
There she is.
Come get your prize. And with that, turn it over to you, right? I did not steal the paper.
Okay, so what do you think of our new digs? Okay, that was admittedly a cheap ploy to start off my presentation with a round of applause. So, who likes art? Everybody likes art. Not everybody appreciates just how important art is to our lives. And so that's what we're going to learn about. Art is an important part of life in Alexandria. Alexandria gets national recognition as an arts destination, largely on the strength of all of the visual arts opportunities that we have in the city. I'm sure most of you know that the DC metro area is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the country, one of the most popular places for people to go when they visit DC is Alexandria, and the most popular destination in Alexandria for our visitors, both the people that come from other places and people that live around the DC metro area, is the Torpedo Factory. So, the first speaker we're going to hear from is the man who runs the show at the Torpedo Factory, Eric Wallner. We're then going to hear from Matthew Stentrud, who chairs our city's Commission on the Arts. And this is important because this is a city that does a lot to support art, and we're going to hear about all of the things, places to see art in the city, places to learn about art, ways to make art, and some of the things that the city is doing to keep Alexandria an arts-friendly city. And then, wrapping up, I guess, sort of our cleanup hitter, is this is a big privilege for us. Randy Cohen is the Vice President of Research and Policy at Americans for the Arts. And what does that mean? Well, in short, it means that he is the national expert on exactly what we want to hear about, which is what art does for a community, what it does for the economy, what it does for the quality of life, and all kinds of other things that I'm not going to tell you because he's going to. And so what I'm going to do now is turn the podium over to Eric to get us started.
Good evening. Thank you so much for, let's see, is this working? There we go. It's great to be here. It's a real honor to be in front of such an informed, engaged group. I've come to many Agenda Alexandria events, and I've always been impressed by the level of discourse and thoughtfulness that goes into the questions and dialogue. So I'm looking forward to that tonight. I want to start by thanking Rosalind, Alan, Sherry, and Terry for inviting me to come tonight and for putting this on the agenda. We are an important part of the city, and we're thrilled that we're getting the same time to talk about our issues as a lot of other important civic issues that come up. Let's see if I can get this to work here. I assume I push this button.
Going on the right.
Is this the?
Yeah. On the right.
So I'm going to be talking tonight about the Torpedo Factory, obviously. How many people have been to the Torpedo Factory? Raise your hand. I kind of figured. How many people have been in the last month? How many people have been in the last week? All right, this is a pretty engaged crowd. So you know a lot about what we're up to. I'm going to talk briefly about our history, some of our new strategic planning initiatives, and finally end with some of the positive information about our impact on the community. We are, as has been said several times, we're Alexandria's biggest attraction. We attract roughly 500,000 visitors a year. We found out this year that according to the Alliance for Artist Communities, which is the national service organization for artist residency programs, that we are the largest artist residency program in the country with 82 studios. So we're very proud of that fact. And we do get 500,000 visitors, and we've created over 200,000 pieces of artwork since we started, which is a pretty impressive number. I also want to, that's a lot of art making. I also want to acknowledge the ACVA and their efforts to include us as a highlight of their tourism promotion this past year. One of our artists, Anna Shakiva, was featured on the guide and in many of their ads. So that was really exciting to be on all the subways throughout the DC metro area. We do it all on a shoestring. We have an incredible board. I want to start by acknowledging our founder who's here tonight, Marion Van Landingham. Marion, as you all know, is a living legend. She has done so much for our community, our organization over the years, and we would not be here if it weren't for her. So we're very grateful for her continued involvement. I also want to acknowledge some of the other board members who are here tonight. I see Susan Sanders, who is here. Diane Ruggiero from the Office of the Arts. And Patricia Washington from the ACVA, all of whom are doing fantastic work and are real allies for our organization. We're very grateful for their support. We have an incredible, very small but hardworking staff of 7. We've gone through a lot of changes over the past year and a half, but I think we've got a really dedicated board of mixture of young and experienced staff members who bring a lot to the table. For those of you that need a really brief history lesson, it starts in 1918 when our building was built. We were an active military facility, as you all know, for many years. We became founded as an art center in 1974. We were last renovated in 1983. I just looked up online and found out that Dallas, the original Dallas with Larry Hagman, not the new one, was the #1 show in 1983, just to give you a little context. That was the last time the building was renovated. We'll get to that later. And then in 2011, we became a nonprofit organization at the urging of the city following the MAI study that was commissioned by the city. We are a fairly complicated organization in our governance structure. We have actually 4 organizations under our roof. There's the Torpedo Factory Art Center Board, which is the organization I work for. We oversee the oversight of the building, the marketing and programming for all the common spaces. The Torpedo Factory Artists Association is the artists, essentially sort of a tenant organization for the artists. They oversee the house rules, artist relations, and our jurying process. The Art League is our school. Many of you are familiar with it. Suzanne Bethel, their director, is here tonight. And they do wonderful, wonderful events of all kinds, serving a really wide range of ages and artistic mediums. They have been actively involved in the founding of the Torpedo Factory, and we're very close allies. And then finally, we have on the third floor, we have the Alexandria Archaeology Museum, which is a city entity. It is also a wonderful, wonderful organization and a permanent tenant of the building. So last year, when I came into town and sort of got going, one of our first points of order was to take a step back and do some planning. We spent a year meeting. I think we did at the end something like 25, 26 hours worth of planning as a board together. The entire board, as well as representation from the Art League and the Torpedo Factory Artist Association and the museum. So it was a pretty intensive, heated process of talking about why we exist, why we're relevant to the community, and what we hope to accomplish. Out of that came the mission tagline, Art in Person and in Progress, which really speaks to the personal connection that is so central to everything that we do. Our goal is to ignite the creative spirit in everyone who comes through our building, and that really starts with the one-on-one interaction with the artist, the ability to ask questions, to engage them in a dialogue about what they're doing. We also chose 3 sort of central focus objectives for the coming years. The first one is really about continuing our legacy as an indispensable community asset. What does that mean? How do we continue to serve our local community? The second was about supporting our artists, of course, who have made the organization the great place that it is. And the third one was about enhancing the reputation of the organization among artists, the public, and within the art world. How do we raise the prestige of an already prestigious organization, but really looking at how do we continue as a world-class facility. We started by really having to acknowledge our history. We knew that change was in the air, that there's going to be a new look. As you all have noticed, we've changed our logo, we've done some new things. Not always the most popular moves, but we're making efforts, we're looking forward, we're continuing to progress. But out of that, we felt it was really, really important to identify what is the bedrock fundamental values that our organization stands for. So we spent a lot of time looking at what is it that this organization will always be beholden to as we move into the future. So I'm not going to go through these in great detail, but I think these values that are up here on the screen are about acknowledging our history, acknowledging all the artists who have been through our building, literally hundreds and probably even close to 1,000 artists who have had some role at some time over our 40-year history. We believe that the arts are an essential part of what makes us human, about what makes our society so great. These values speak to community, they speak to excellence, the need for innovation, and finally, our location on the waterfront and the rich history of the building, and how that really has an important role in why we're there and what we do. One of the things that's a huge trend that I'm sure Randy will touch on, as well as Matthew, is about involvement in the arts and how audiences are really looking to have an active engagement with the arts. They don't necessarily want to come and just be a spectator or a passive audience member. They really want to engage in a whole new way. And we're really trying to address that. These are some ideas. These are not set in stone yet. These are things that our board has tossing around as potential programmatic approaches to really moving our organization forward. The one that I'm very excited about that will be starting in January of next year is our post-MFA graduate residency program, where we're partnering with MFA programs all over the region. They'll be nominating their best and brightest graduate students to come and do residencies in our building alongside our regular artists. We expect that this will bring an infusion of young, energetic, diverse artists working in all kinds of new forms into our building, so we're very excited about that. We're also looking at things like doing a maker space, which is a sort of a new innovative idea where people can come and have hands-on activities with engaging with 3D printers and new technologies, and working with our artists to have them engage with them as well. The purpose of the residencies, the makerspace, is really to promote inclusion. It's about diversity, it's about collaboration, and introducing new technologies, ideas, and worldviews to the community and to our artists. We do a lot of partnerships. Collaboration is really a central operating principle of everything that we do. And that includes welcoming in diverse art forms. Obviously, we're very focused on the visual arts, but we also have a number of partners. We did a wonderful program last year called Night of 1,000 Strings during our second Thursday art night, where we partnered with the Alexandria Symphony Orchestra. We had players from their group come and perform, and we also had youth musicians from 4 different schools, middle schools and high schools, come and perform in the building. It was a great evening and a great example of how we partner with our local arts community. I think one of the important points of tonight is that the arts are a huge economic driver. I'm also on the board of the Arts Forum. We're doing some great stuff collectively as a sector to really articulate our value. The arts do contribute over $70 million annually to the economy of Alexandria, of which the Torpedo Factory is roughly 23% of that, $16.2 million. About 83% of our visitors are from out of town, which is a huge percent. We're very fortunate in that regard. If anything, I think that speaks to our need to continue to reach out to the local community and engage them equally. We know from studies from our tourism colleagues that cultural tourists, those are people that are coming specifically to engage with an arts activity, tend to be slightly older, affluent, they stay longer, they're looking for high quality experiences, and they're really the kind of visitor that we want to have here in Alexandria. We also know that from an economic development standpoint that cultural workers, that knowledge workers, excuse me, those are the high-tech programmers, those are scientists, those are entrepreneurs of different kinds. They really want to be in an environment that stimulates them, that is exciting and vibrant, and they demand that we have world-class cultural amenities available to them. We are very much aligned with the city's strategic plan and have been very active in the waterfront development. We really see the continued development of the Torpedo Factory as the initial phase of the waterfront planning moving forward. So we're very excited about that. And I want to give a nod out to Vice Mayor Silverberg and her great support for the Arts Center and for the arts in general, and her vision for programs like Easel to Easel, which I know you'll be hearing about more. And we're just very fortunate to have such a great ally in her. The other side of this is that we're a huge bargain, believe it or not. You've all heard about Artisphere, the Lorton Workhouse project, and some of the challenges they've had. We actually have the opposite kind of problem. The average spending in a museum, a U.S. museum per visitor, is roughly $40 to $50 per visitor. We come in at $2 per visitor. We are about as cost effective as we could possibly be, which is both a strength and a challenge for us as we grow and continue to serve the numbers of visitors that we do, in making sure that our experience is as high quality as it can be. I'd be remiss if I just left at the economic impact. I think that there's a lot of intrinsic value to the arts that we're all aware of. They're part of our everyday life. We live in a highly educated, diverse community that's very engaged, and what the Torpedo Factory does is we really create a sense of uniqueness, identity, place. It's something that we travel around the world and you will run into people that have heard of the Torpedo Factory. It's put Alexandria on the map. We inspire young people to become artists or to engage in creative thinking, whether they're art people or not at the end of the day. And we have an international reputation. Our artists in our building show all over the world and are really ambassadors for the city. In terms of the future moving forward, what we're really focused on is building our board. We have 2 new seats on our board. They're open seats. You can go to the city's website if you're interested, and you could actually apply to be on one of these seats. We are building our programming, looking at new ways to engage our audiences in a deeper, sustained way over time. We're cultivating new philanthropic investments. We have a pretty detailed fundraising plan that includes reaching out to major corporations, foundations, individual donors, etc. We are on the CIP plan for the city. We are asking for $4.5 million over the next 3 years in order to renovate the facility. The one that I mentioned wasn't renovated since 1983. That's over 30 years. And so we're very excited about that because we feel that in order to be the anchor of the waterfront plan and the crown jewel of the city, as we're often referred to, we need to offer something really vibrant and exciting for our visitors. And we're also working on a new longer-term lease with the city. We're currently on essentially a year-to-year lease. So with that, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. We are really proud of the Torpedo Factory. We hope you are too. We really see it as a resource that's here for you and the community. And with the investment of in some long-term programming and some facility upgrades, we hope to be around for another 40 years. Thank you.
I'm definitely inspired by the Torpedo Factory every time I go. So, and I was one of the ones who said I was there within the past week. So if you haven't been there recently, you should absolutely check it out. The artists are doing all new things every time you come in. And I love to go if I get a chance during the daytime when some artists are there working and just watch them work. And just watch them work. Is this better? Sorry, thank you. And just watch them work because it's really amazing the art that they're up to. You'd think as a school teacher I would know how to speak clearly and loudly. So, and another thing was I got home from school today and I was getting ready and I had to remind myself how to tie a tie because in elementary music I'm rolling around the floor all day, and which is fun. I just absolutely love it. But I was like, wait a second, it's been a little while. So it was a nice refresher, and thank goodness that YouTube was there to save me. Anyway, but I'm really excited to be here because the arts in Alexandria are phenomenal. And for cities of our size, to have this opportunity for so much amazing art is really phenomenal. And I can't say enough how grateful I am to be invited to be here to talk about the great things the city's up to and the great things that so many organizations are up to. We have organizations like the Alexandria Choral Society, the Alexandria Harmonizers, and Alan is here from the Harmonizers, the Alexandria Symphony, Metro Stage, Port City Playhouse, all of these really great performance arts. And then we also have the visual arts, like the Art League, Suzanne is here, Torpedo Factory, quite obviously, Del Rey Artisans is here. There are countless opportunities to be involved in the arts. And these places offer classes, like the Art League does. The Del Rey Artisans offers weekly live drawing sessions and workshops that you can attend. And I went to their recent Put a Bird on It exhibit, which, if you haven't seen yet, is absolutely amazing. And Justin Wilson's son, Eli, even is in the show right near the front door, so you have to check that out. It's really great to see young artists involved, and our city offers that opportunity in countless ways. And let's say you aren't in elementary school, but you could also take part in the Young at Art exhibition, which we offer at the Durant Center. And it is an amazing opportunity for people that maybe aren't young in age, but are young at art. And I think that that would be a great way, if you have that hankering for doing some art, you could get involved through that. So never hesitate to know how many ways that there are that you can be involved. Nevertheless, It's an exciting time for arts in the city, and one of the reasons that's the case is because the commission just last week passed, I might say unanimously, our public art plan. And we've been working with Office of the Arts on creating a new phase of public art in the city. We have some amazing public art, but there are so many ways where we can grow. And this is where the commission has been dedicating a lot of its time as of late, and where we're getting to the point now where we can get citizens involved in other ways other than just the amazing open houses we've had. We're now looking for ways for you to get involved in helping decide the art that comes next in our city, which is a really great opportunity. What's great about the public art plan that the commission just passed is it touches on three exciting aspects of Alexandria. One would be the past, because Alexandria has an amazing history, more so than most cities of our size in our country. And it's a great way for public art to have an engaging, thought-provoking discussion, is how can art touch on history? We could go into the present and connecting people through dialogue, fostering conversations about art. We have a lot of great art, and one of the most recent ones I'm also going to mention is the Contrabands in Friedman Cemetery. That is an amazing work of art if you haven't seen it yet. And I was fortunate enough to be at the ceremony of the opening dedication. Vice Mayor Silberberg was there, among many other Alexandrians. And it was just an amazing way that we're connecting the past of our history with art in our future. And we're looking for more ways to make that happen. So currently, we have 28 works of art in our city considered public art. And if you take a look at each one, we'll notice that most of them are going to be permanent works. The first one I featured for Eric is the Torpedo Factory. It's a really great staircase. I'm sure you've seen it. We have a lot of others. We have murals from the Mount Vernon to the Alexandria War Memorial, plazas, Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and Memorial Gardens. We can go on through the Dora Kelly Nature Park, which I might add, if you've ever had a chance to visit the Ford Nature Center, they also offer some really great classes and ways to be involved in art. So I could talk on tangents about the ways you could get involved in art so many times. It's pretty exciting to see that. As well as the fountain in front of the elections office, and thank you, Anna, for being here as well. So you should stop by and see her next time you visit the fountain, or vice versa. And the King Street Gardens Park, which we see all the time and is going through a current renovation, and we're excited because Buster Simpson is going to be coming back for that renovation, which is really great. And there's a lot to look forward to in art in our city. But one of the things I will mention about this art is that the art revolves around sculptures and murals. And those are amazing works of art. But how else can art affect our city? And that's a lot of the discussion the commission's been up to, is we have amazing art, but how can we build upon that to create further discussion? And I think one of the ways we can do that is by expanding the vocabulary of what we understand as public art. If we take a look at Alexandria's past, present, and future, there are a lot of projects we can undertake balanced throughout the city that kind of follow these three creative directions that we're excited to show. And they're also on the boards in the back if you want to take a closer look later this evening. One is time and place, and that's really where Alexandria's history comes into focus. A dialogue with our rich history can create a lot of opportunities for art. We have historical and archaeological collections, much like we have at the Torpedo Factory. How can we curate artists to come in and take those historical pieces and juxtapose them with contemporary art? One example that I wanted to mention, the Maryland Historical Society had a temporary exhibition called Mining the Museum. And it was really thought-provoking because it juxtaposed what the museum already had, like pieces of fine silver. And it put that with a curator who came in and put it against an African-American heritage. So in the same box were slave shackles. And it's saying both of these are important pieces of art. And both of these are part of our history. So how can we make that history come alive in art? And that's what's so great about art, is the thought-provoking aspect that it provides, that we don't always get through words. And that's one way that I'm really excited for what our future in art. Next would be neighborhoods and gathering places. Another amazing thing about Alexandria is the varied city skyline, from Old Town to Del Rey to the West End. There's so much that our city has to offer. How can we create those neighborhoods and make them even more memorable through art? Another way I think about this is we have places of art that, through development, we can expand and create these large pieces. And there might be places where the city is already built up, and there may be not much in that area for development concerning a large piece. But how can we create a gathering place or a gateway that takes what we have and puts some amazing art there? Some of these pictures here are really amazing. One, a bike rack, simple. We take places where we don't have a lot of space and we can create art. We also have larger pieces like those gathering places in the bottom left corner. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but you can take a look in the back after. And it takes a place where we could have art, or we could have meetings, or we could have music, and then makes art out of that space as well. Another great creative direction is natural and urban systems, and this is definitely a place where, considering you're having an exciting sewer discussion in the near future, how can we take art and put it in places like that? The bottom one is an amazing way to use sustainable resource management. So we have rainfall through the art, and perhaps a fountain comes alive during that time and uses the rainfall as a fountain until eventually the rain dissipates, the fountain lays dormant until another rainfall. And it's a really exciting way to have art that way, as well as perhaps at least a little mitigation of our sewer discussion. So that's another great way we can use art, or maybe on soft trails, or an exciting thing in the future that I wanted to mention regarding natural and urban systems are manhole covers. It's going to be exciting. We passed something just recently to begin to work with Transportation and Environmental Services to begin changing our manhole covers. They get replaced as time goes on, perhaps 25 a year. How can we have an artist come in and take that manhole cover and turn it into a piece of art? And the best part about it is that the price is essentially the same, or very minimal difference. So we're taking something we're already spending money on, and we're saying, how can we turn that into art instead of a manhole cover? And the same could go for those utility boxes, those beautiful utility boxes we see around the city. How could we actually turn them into pieces of art? And again, we can wrap them with art. And these are exciting things our city is about to come into. And what I'm excited about that is you can be involved in that process. Each project has a task force, and I know we love the name task force, but the good news about these task forces is that there's a set schedule. If you're going to be part of the manhole covers because you have an affinity for manhole covers, which could be possible, you could take part in a task force that would meet 3 or 5 times to decide to choose a curator or to have an artist come in to pick the selection for how you'd like those manhole covers, what art we're going to take part in it, and then your job is done. So instead of these long-term commitments where you're expected to meet monthly for an undetermined period of time, we can just say you can come to 3 meetings because this is something important to you, or perhaps it's a project that's occurring in the part of town where you live, West End, Del Rey, Cameron Station, and the public art's happening there. We want citizens involved in that project because the art is supposed to be about the citizens, and it's supposed to be about our city. And without getting citizens involved, we can't make that happen. So I can't think of a better room to speak to say these are people that are involved. You are involved, and the commission needs you to be part of this process so we can have art that's about us. And that's one of the most exciting things about this plan, which will be presented to City Council in October. So if you love the plan, it's a great time to let them know how you feel. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Commission for the Arts, which isn't necessarily one of the commissions we hear about all the time, but because there's so much art happening in the city, I'm excited to be here to tell you a little bit about what we do. One of the things that we don't necessarily do but was just unveiled was the Mobile Art Lab. Perhaps you saw it at the King Street Arts Festival when it was debuted, and it's really exciting because this is another way that we can get involved in art. The city is going to be working to have artists come into the truck. It's for all ages. Perhaps we take it to the West End, perhaps we take it to the King Street Festival or Art on the Avenue or any place else where there's gatherings or schools or other sorts of assemblies. And an artist there can make art happen. And it's on the inside, there's tons of room for supplies, and it's a really exciting venture of what we're going into. And I really thank the city and Diane Ruggiero and Cheryl Ann Colton, our city staff, for making that happen. And I will clarify that it's for all ages. There's a lot, I know we can think of these art labs as coming around and perhaps having projects for kids, and that's something that it absolutely will do as well. But these are also projects for adults. And over the King Street Arts Festival, they made bandanas, and I got to make an LED light in the evening, which was pretty cool, right by the Torpedo Factory. So these are just the beginning of what our lab is going to be up to. So the commission does a varying sort of things. One is reviewing and approving public art projects, and we did that with the Contraband and Friedman back in 2012, and we just formed those task forces that are going to help us approve public art projects in the future. Another way is public outreach, such as I'm here today, but there's also a great way that I have a lot of other commissioners here as well. Shirley Downs is here, and Margaret Woller's here, and David Martin is here. So thank you to those three commissioners for being here. We advocate for the arts, and we're all involved in the arts in various ways. Me as a music teacher, other commissioners as visual artists, other commissioners as architects, and we come from those varying degrees to help us figure out what exciting art we could have in our city. Another way I will mention is reviewing the annual grants, and that's also a wonderful thing our city has. And I'm going to flip to that now, and I'll go back to that slide. I should have switched them. Sorry about that. But the arts grants in the city allocates approximately $170,000 a year, and if you would like more money, I never hesitate to say that if we get involved with outreach to the city council, you never know. So I always love the opportunity to speak with city council members and spoke to city council about advocating for this. We have so many wonderful arts organizations, and the funding we have is essential to the growth of these organizations in our city. Some of these organizations include Delray Artisans, Alexandria Singers, Art League, Alexandria Harmonizers. In fact, we had 25 this past year that received either operational or program support. And we also have special opportunity grants, and we're starting a new thing called micro grants. And these could be temporary projects. One, Jane Franklin Dance is doing a stop, drop, and roll. So if you've ever wanted to roll through a dance project, this is something where, again, it's a temporary project, but citizens are taking part in making this art happen. That's what's really great about the organizations our city has, is we have professional art, and then we have opportunities for citizens to get involved as well in making that art. And unfortunately, I think one of the rehearsals was either today or yesterday, and I wasn't able to make it. So I'm hoping to get my role on in the near future. But it's really great that we have these opportunities. I will step back a second to talk about the Office of the Arts. The Office of the Arts is essential in making what we do happen. Promotes the value of the arts. It helps in countless ways, and Diane Ruggiero and Cheryl Ann Colton are both here. They are amazing in making so many of our city's programs happen, and I cannot thank them enough. And if you ever have questions about specific city projects, they're also wonderful people to reach out to regarding that. So finally, I just want to say that there are so many ways that we can be involved in making art and seeing art and taking part in the creation of art in our city. From actually making the art yourself, whether it's through Delray Artisans or Art League or other places, whether it's through seeing the art, like the public art in our city, or seeing the art in exhibitions, or seeing the art in performances through dance and music and other media. And finally, there's a lot of future for us to take part in the creation of art through our public art task forces, and hopefully with a cultural plan in the future. These are great ways that we as citizens can help change how art creates discussions in our city. And it's really exciting that we're on this precipice. And this is a perfect time for me to be here because there's an exciting venture for us. And we need people like the people in this room, like you, to be involved for us to be successful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You remember it. All right, thanks everybody. I'm Randy Cohen. I'm with Americans for the Arts in Washington, D.C. So great to be with you all today, and I just love this gathering of folks and how everybody's coming out, getting engaged in the community. And what a great topic. Alexandria is a great arts city. I mean, no doubt about it. I travel to a different city every week across the country, and I can tell you each of these examples pop up, maybe one of these types of examples pops up in different cities across the country. So, you know, like you were hearing about the utility boxes being wrapped. So I was in Boise, Idaho not long ago, and they've wrapped about 25 of their utility boxes. The biggest thing to do now in Boise is get your picture next to all 25 utility boxes, and they put you in the newspaper. And folks are all over this idea. Absolutely, it's great. And I was in upstate New York where I learned about one of the big public safety hazard issues these days, and that is, this is related to the manhole covers. People are stealing manhole covers these days and selling them for scrap metal. Now, you know, can you think of a bigger nightmare, you know, Allison? You know, you get the call in the middle of the night, oh, the lady fell in, we can't get her out. So they're having to redo them with little locks on them, and exactly what you said. They've got to go back to the foundry anyway. They're paying artists to redo these manhole covers. And I was walking around town with the mayor, and he was showing, well, we've got this. There's another one of our manholes. And then we've got this great economic development. And check out that manhole, and, you know, with a whole story. So, and even, and you like, you know, the utility issue or, you know, the dump, really? Absolutely. Phoenix, Arizona. This is a couple decades ago now. It was time to redo their 27th Avenue solid waste treatment facility, so talking about the dump. And they thought, how can we better connect solid waste treatment, environmentalism to the community and what's going on? So they brought artists on as part of the whole thinking and developing of this. And short story is, the Phoenix dump today is a place where 250,000 people a year go to see the rotating art exhibits. We had a convention there some years back, and we did our closing event there. We called it Dance at the Dump, and it was a big hit. So anyway, arts is part of the community, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because a vibrant arts community strengthens the whole quality of life and livability for our communities. And I want to just say, not only is this a great arts city, it's a city with great arts leadership. Former Governor Gilmore, Allison, you've heard her mentioned several times. On the public sector side, our Arts Council directors, Diane Ruggiero and Cheryl Ann Colton, great nationally recognized leaders, tourism and cultural tourism leaders right here, Patricia Washington. And of course, it was good to see my old NEA colleague, Tony Ty. There he is. Absolutely. Tony and I worked together at the NEA for a long time. So you've got great local, statewide, and national leadership, you know, right here in town. So arts, it's a great thing. It's a fundamental component to our community. And I put a little top 10 reasons for why we should support the arts on all of your tables there. And the number one reason is it's fundamental to our humanity. It's food for the soul. It really defines who we are as a people and as a culture. And is this a new phenomenon? No, not really. It's been around for a long time. And I give you as evidence of that, I don't know if a couple of years ago any of you were reading the New York Times, and some anthropologists in Germany were busy checking out some caves, looking for some historic societies and people that are there a long time. And they came across this 35,000-year-old hand-carved flute. And you can see it's a beautiful piece of work. And eventually somebody got enough guts to sort of like, well, what happens if we blow air through it? And it actually sounds right. It's got the right proportions, the right measures. And what was interesting, though, is in reading this article, these anthropologists were trying to figure out, now, what was the purpose of this flute? Well, they thought maybe it helped promote territorial expansion. Or maybe it was to celebrate the hunt, or related to the fertility ritual, perhaps. I just kept thinking, maybe they liked the way it sounded, but that never showed up. But the bottom line is, you know, art's really a fundamental core to our communities, to our humanity, have been for a long time. Actually, do we have any flautists in the room? Anyone play a flute? Used to play a flute? Well, all right, be glad you didn't play back in the 1700s, because this whole flute thing really stayed with us, right? So I offer you something that was used several hundred years ago called the Shame Flute. Now, this little ditty was made out of cast iron, and it was clasped around a person's neck, and the fingers were shackled to that long iron tube. And the purpose of the Shame Flute was to punish bad musicians. Yeah, that's right. So you got a gig at the Prince's Palace, you know, and you stank up the joint. Well, they'd march you around town for a couple of days wearing the Shame Flute so everybody could laugh at the bad musician. You know, sounds a little barbaric, but they cared about their music, right? You know, so anyway, arts and culture, part of our society for a long time. Now, there's a lot of community benefits. We've just heard two great presentations, the great cultural assets right here in the city, how that's improving our quality of life. But you know what? There's a lot of other benefits that having a vibrant arts community brings. And how about, you heard a little bit about it, the economy, jobs. Really? That's not really an intuitive way to think about it. But in fact arts are big business right here in Alexandria. And Alexandria was one of 182 communities that were part of a national economic impact study that we did. Everybody catch that special effect? That was on me, ladies and gentlemen. No 15-year-olds involved in the making of that. So we looked at spending by arts organizations and their audiences across the country, but right here in Alexandria. And you know what we found is that spending by nonprofit arts organizations was about $26 million a year. So we just added up the budgets. That's something we just don't think about, right? Well, they improve our quality of life. Arts creates these communities we want to live in. But the fact is, they're businesses. These arts organizations, the ones you represent, are businesses. They employ people right here in town. They purchase goods and services locally. They're involved in the marketing and promotion of the city, great cultural tourism, great marketing efforts of Alexandria using the arts. It's a great example right here in town. So $26 million in spending by the arts organizations and an additional $45 million in spending by arts audiences. Well, think about the last time you went to an arts event. Well, you know, maybe you had to pay for parking. Maybe you got in fact, I was thinking this morning when I got dressed, this necktie actually was a gift from my wife when we went out on a date night to the theater not too long ago. So, you know, there's some retail involved in it. And then you go out and you have dinner and you see the show. Maybe you go out for dessert or drinks afterwards. If you got little ones at home, you come home, double the cost of the evening on babysitting. You know, I think the real racket in all of this. But lots of economic activity. And so what did we find out? Right here in Alexandria, $71 million of economic activity, and that supports 1,774 local jobs. Jobs at arts organizations and jobs across the country. And I'm seeing some clapping right there because I wanted to call out my number one Americans for the Arts member here, Fran Redmond. And you may not have a button on your lapel yet that says, I support the arts and I vote. But trust me, you will before long. Just easier just to give in, just start wearing it. So anyway, a great Americans for the Arts member. It's so good to have you here. And a great arts champion, locally, statewide, and across the country. Let me tell you, she moves this needle on behalf of everybody in this country. Jobs, how about government revenue? That's something else we think about. These are businesses. That $71 million in expenditures generates $4.8 million in revenue to local and state government. So again, we're getting quality of life, but also getting a great economic return. And that just shows that when we invest in the arts, when we support the arts, we're not investing in a frill. We're investing in an industry, one that supports jobs, generates government revenue, and is the cornerstone of tourism. So it's a great story right here. Now, I just want to kind of expand on this a little bit because, yeah, the arts organizations are businesses and have an economic impact. And, of course, it's no secret, so does everything. The dog catcher's office, the gas station. But few industries generate the kind of event-related spending that the arts do. And so I told you, as part of this study, we interviewed over 1,100 attendees at arts events right here in Alexandria. And we found that the typical attendee spends $19.21 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. And you can see, if you're able, how this breaks out. It's about normal, about half of it on food and souvenirs and gifts. There's my necktie. And ground transportation, that's, you know, your parking. Some of you might be looking at lodging there thinking, wow, $1.33, can you still get a room around here for that? And would you want to if you could? No, you wouldn't. Remember, only a portion of attendees have an overnight arts expense. But we did something else. We asked each of those attendees for their zip code, because we want to find out where those folks living. You know, we heard a little bit about, are they local, are they non-local? 30% of the attendees, 2.3 million attendees through the turnstiles in fiscal year 2010, 30% come from outside of Alexandria. And they spend over $20 per person per event. So, you know, you can start to see when you bring those folks in, you're going to get a little more of that economic activity. Now, are they here because, well, I was in town anyway, or I was on business? We actually asked those folks, the non-local ones, why are you here? Well, are you here on business? Are you here visiting friends and family? 68% said we came specifically for this arts event. So this is the draw I'm talking about. Yeah, that's a good news story. There's some applause there, but you're absolutely right. This is product. But then we asked the local counterparts, all of you who live in town, well, let's say this arts event wasn't taking place. Would you have stayed home, done something else? 43% said, oh, we traveled to a different community to attend a similar kind of arts event. Now, arts is spending, it's a discretionary expenditure. You could spend it here, you could spend it somewhere else. But because of the great arts product right here in Alexandria, we're drawing people from out of town, and they're spending money, and we're keeping our neighbors and their hard-won discretionary dollars right here in town. That's why a lot of times, you know, we say, a vibrant arts community, good for local business. So that's a great news story, and one I really want to call out. So now I want to move on to a World War II tank. Where are we going with this, right? All right. Well, this actually is from World War II, and this World War II tank is actually an inflatable tank. This is a product of the 23rd Special Troops Unit. They were nicknamed the Ghost Army in World War II. And the purpose of the 23rd was to create battlefield diversions. The U.S. Army was looking for any edge they could get in the World War II, you know, towards the end there. And so they thought, you know, if we could come up with a way to creatively confound the, you know, the enemy and throw them off the scent even just a little bit, that would give us a slight edge. And so who did they turn to? Well, they turned to the artists. They went and they brought in artists and designers and technicians and actors, and they did inflatable airplanes and inflatable tanks. They did whole phony radio transmissions. And in fact, one of the U.S. generals credits the 23rd with saving 10,000 American lives during one of the Rhine War battles, because it peeled off a huge portion of the German army that went to chase down the inflatable tanks. Art Kane, Ellsworth Kelly, fashion designer Bill Blass, all members of the 23rd. So, you know, I say if you can be innovative on a World War II battlefield using the arts, you can certainly be innovative, great, you know, in a great art city like Alexandria, right? You know, the military sat on this for 50 years. They didn't come clean on this until 1996. So, Alexandria is a very creative city in the business sense as well. And so, I do a study called Creative Industries, Business and Employment in the Arts. And what I use is data from Dun & Bradstreet, the most comprehensive and trusted source for business information in the United States. And we find, where are all the arts businesses in there? Nationally, 750,000 of the nation's businesses are arts businesses. Your nonprofit theaters, museums, ballet companies, as well as your for-profit film, architecture, design. Those are all businesses built on the arts, right? Well, I can tell you right here in Alexandria, 671 arts businesses that employ over 3,500 people. And you can see these dots. Each of these dots represents an arts-centric business involved in the creation or the distribution of the arts. So it covers all across the city. And I got to tell you, nationally, on average, it's about 4.2% of businesses are arts businesses. Right here in Alexandria, 6.5%. Fully 50% more. This is a city of creativity, of innovation on the nonprofit side, but also on the for-profit business side. So really powerful numbers that the arts permeate this city in a lot of different ways. Now, why is that important? Well, yeah, it's important because we love, having the arts. We love great design, and we love, the businesses and the commerce. But business leaders these days, if you ask them what they're worried about, it's about creative, innovative employees, finding and attracting a skilled, educated workforce. And so we worked with a conference board. They're the national organization for the Fortune 1000 companies in this country. And their research shows creativity has soared to the top 5 applied skills that business leaders are looking for. It's leapfrogged the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And you go on to find out that 72% of business leaders say creativity is of high importance in hiring, yet 85% of those folks say we can't find the people we're looking for. What were the biggest indicators of creativity? Starting your own company and study of the arts, especially while in college. So again, connecting the arts to creativity and innovation. Now, you work your way down the list of how they measure creativity. 27% actually cop to the checkbox. We assess creativity based on the candidate's appearance during the interview. Whew, thank God for anonymous surveys. But just in case anyone's looking for a new chief innovation officer, I'm wearing my cool socks today. And I got to say, these 2 guys are wearing cool socks as well. So this is an innovative panel. There they are. Let's see them, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Come on, get those cameras going. So anyway.
That wasn't planned either.
Yeah, that's right. That was all part of the moment. So this is important, and Eric touched on this, because these days, workers in the new economy are acting very differently than the way we did. When I was coming up, I went to, whoever would have me, wherever I could find that job. These days, younger workers, they're picking the communities that they want to live in, moving there, and then figuring they'll find work. Why? Because you know what? If you can work for Google, you can work for Big Pharma, you can work for finance, you can work for oil. All these industries really, there's such transferable skills. And it's a domestic phenomenon, and it's an international phenomenon. And when you ask those folks, well, what's bringing you to a town? And this is, again and again, creative, culturally vibrant communities. They want to live in a cool place. Who doesn't, right? So that's another benefit that we're getting from this creative, culturally vibrant city that we live in. And it's bringing the workers, and that brings the businesses. So again, another good news story for Alexandria. So let me give you an example of how this also plays out. So last year, the gentleman who shared the Nobel Prize for Medicine, Thomas Sudoff, he's a Stanford University researcher, he was asked, tell me about your most influential teacher. You know what he said without a beat? It was my bassoon teacher growing up. Because it taught me discipline, it taught me practice, it taught me the iterative process, pattern recognition. And in fact, there's research, there's a scholar, Michigan State, he looked at all of the Nobel laureates in the sciences going back to the very beginning, and he found Nobel laureates are 17 times more likely to be actively involved in the arts. Isn't that interesting? So there's some kind of connection there, and that's some of the benefit that we've got with this arts community. Let me just hit one other area that I'm really excited and passionate about, and I know is one of the issues that will be discussed later this year, healthcare. It's a big issue, right? It's in the paper every day. It's this $2.5 trillion problem. In the last 30 years, healthcare has gone from 6 to 17% of the nation's GDP. It's a big issue. Well, I've got an arts background. I used to run theater, but I also have a medical research background. I worked at Stanford University. I worked at Scripps Clinic and Research Foundation. The arts people wonder what I was doing in the sciences. The science people wonder what I was doing in the arts. But I got to tell you, they're all pretty closely related. But at Scripps, on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock, we used to have live chamber music in the lobby. And, you know, and I was kind of a cub back then. I thought, well, that's a nice amenity, and boy, it's really, you know, entertaining. We'd bring, patients in, and folks would be there and listen to the music. But what I started to notice is that in the presence of the music, you could see physical transformation take place. Patients that I would see in their rooms clinically, you know, lethargic, depressed. Let's face it, even if you have a view of the ocean, no fun being in the hospital, right? But in the presence of the music, the eyes got less cloudy, people's posture got better, saw a greater awareness of the environment around them. I used to think it's like they're getting a shot of something. It's like they've got an IV drip of the arts going on. Well, it turns out there's a growing body of research that shows when the arts are part of our healing, and by the way, just shy of 50% of the nation's hospitals now have active arts programs and music programs for patients. Shorter hospital stays, less medication, fewer doctor visits, less depression. Even evidence that it saves money. And you're looking at an example here of, you know, one of those CAT scan MRI machines, right? All decorated, beautifully painted, and it's for children. So there's a hospital in Tallahassee, Florida. They were dealing with this issue of pediatric CAT scans, right? So, you know, you got this big, huge, noisy machine, and you got these squirmy little kids, you know. So it's a recipe, you know, for a disaster every time. So they, you know, they've got high retest rates. The kids are all anxious. So they usually give these kids some kind of sedation, something to relax, all the way to a general anesthetic. And they thought, boy, is there a better way to do this? And so they decided, let's try a music intervention. And so about an hour before the procedure, they gave the child a little light something to relax. But a guitarist or a harpist came in, sat with the child, played music, talked to the child. That reduced the stress and anxiety, and to the point where they worked at a 98% procedural success rate and saved an average of $567 per procedure on medicine, on anesthesiology time, nursing time. Boy, what a great win, right? You know, we're not giving our kids so much medication. We're using the power of the arts. Unless we think even that's a new phenomenon. You know, 5,000 years ago, or however many it was, you know, the god Apollo was actually the god of both music and healing. You know, talk about a big portfolio. That guy had it. But, you know, it's not a new phenomenon, but it's one we're rediscovering. Again, another way to integrate the arts into the community. Now, I want to wrap up here. You're looking at a picture up there from the Louvre, 1912. And where those hooks are is where the Mona Lisa had hung. You know, in 1912, the Mona Lisa got stolen. It was gone. It took them 2 years to get it back. But you know what? In the 2 years it was gone, more people went to see where it had been hanging. Yeah, you know where this is going, right? Than went and saw the Mona Lisa in the previous 14 years. You know, we love the arts, but we all got a job to do. You know, we got to go, we got to attend, we got to support, we got our great arts champions, we got to encourage them and thank them for their work. We got to keep support for the great arts institutions and the commission that we have right here in town. So I want to thank you and just say, you know, everything you do to advance the arts here in our community and our state is important, and you're all important for doing it. Thank you very much.
That's how you do it.
Okay, so some of you may have noticed we've got some display tables in the back. And actually, Kate and Jessica, could I ask you guys to bring me my cot? We've got some interesting things going on in the back there. And before I tell you about them, I'd like to remind you that you all have colored pieces of paper like this at your tables. If you have questions, and we hope that some of you do, please write them out on here, and the board members will be coming around to collect them. It was also pointed out to me in the interest of full disclosure that I should share.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you that while we spent a certain amount of time in conversation about this program today, not once did we ever talk about socks. This is spontaneous. Yeah, who in the room has ever seen one of these before? Kay here is with the Red Cross, and one of our display tables back there is from the Red Cross to talk about a program, an arts program that they have coming up called Cots for a Cause. And so what you're looking at here, you're all familiar with the idea that when we have disasters, not just here in the city, but all over the world, that the Red Cross sets up shelters. And people sleep on something like this when they're in a temporary shelter. This cot has passed its retirement age. And so it is going to be repurposed as public art here in Alexandria. So what I'd like you to do is, as you visit the various tables back there, which we're going to give you an opportunity to do shortly, stop by and talk to the Red Cross folks about Cots for a Cause. Next March, during Red Cross Month, what today look like old cots ready to be retired will be turned into pieces of art that will be on display at various places around the city. We're recruiting artists now to participate, and I'm sure that you've all seen or heard of projects like this. A few years ago, there were elephants and donkeys that were decorated in various ways all around D.C. So this is what we're going to be doing here in Alexandria and Arlington as well, to use art to convey the message of some of the things that the Red Cross does in the community. And in fact, Eric of the Torpedo Factory will be joining in on this as the process will eventually result in a winner of an artistic competition, which you'll be able to go and visit over at the Torpedo Factory. And so, actually, that would make it a good time to give away another door prize. We have, from the Torpedo Factory, a memento of tonight's presentation, and of the Torpedo Factory in general, a T-shirt featuring the new logo that Eric talked about. And so, Eric, I'm going to ask you to, I'll come to you, pick a winner. Marky. Okay, you want to come up or you want me to toss it from here? Okay, let me tell you about some of the other folks that we have in the back here. In addition to the Red Cross, we've got representatives from the Alexandria Film Festival. They've got some information, and you'll be able to get more starting later this week on, if you've never visited this website, you should, filmdc.net, which talks about all the film festivals that we have going on in the DC area. The Del Rey Artisans are here. And I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with the Living Legends of Alexandria. You'll see a display. Anita's back there right now. Anybody here ever celebrate New Year's Eve? Well, here at Alexandria, we have a New Year's celebration program called First Night Alexandria. We've got a table here from First Night Alexandria. And did I miss anybody back? Well, of course, the city Office on the Arts. So, let's give out one more door prize before we take your questions. Have you folks been writing down your questions? People have, when you have your question ready, by the way, if you just kind of hold your piece of paper up, a board member will come and get it. And in the meantime, is Paul Friedman still with us? Okay, well, former board member Paul Friedman still brings us great door prizes. And so we have one from Clyde's. We all like going out and eating good food. So, let's see, Randy, you want to pick a winner?
All right. You have about 2 seconds to be the highest bidder.
Eileen Ahern. Oh, great. Hey, David, why don't you come on up and pick a winner. And I'm not sure everybody caught.
It's OTBPA. It's pronounced OTBPA. Old Town Business and Professional Association. And the Supper and the Stars is one of the yearly events. We're going to go from 6 to 9 this year.
David, come on over here.
It'll go 6 to 9 Friday night. We'll have Al Williams there. It's catered by Hard Times Cafe, cupcakes by Alexandria Cupcakes. We'll give away door prizes. We'll have a wonderful night. It's a cash bar. It's $30 a ticket. So call me or email otbpa.com.
Where is it?
It's at the Garden State Park. Garden Park, King Street Garden Park. King in Metro, diagonal.
Okay. Krista Walters. Okay. Okay. Do we have some questions collected? Well, let me hand the microphone over to one of our program co-chairs, Sherry Simmons-Bellari.
Rosalind Bowie's going to help. Okay, so I think we've divided these amongst you all. So the first question is for Matt. Are there efforts locally, and I have to hold it, maybe if you hold it. Are there efforts locally to bring international artists into the community?
I know that artists from varied backgrounds are involved, and from various locations are involved in creating art in the city. It wasn't too long ago that ACPS had an amazing violinist here, and when we do calls for exhibitions, the calls are open to all artists most of the time. Occasionally we'll do looking for calls, looking for something for local art, if that might be what we're looking for. But especially with the public art plan, we've made it very clear that it's Alexandria is a worldwide recognized city. And absolutely we want artists to be involved that come from whether they be local or national or international. So the answer would be that's something we're looking forward to.
Oh, I would just add too that the Torpedo Factory in our target gallery, it's our national and international exhibition space. We have a show right now by Norwegian artists. There's Sami, which are the native people of Scandinavia. And we have a group of artists that did an installation. This year we brought in an artist from Puerto Rico, we've brought in artists from Chicago. We're one of the few galleries in the DC metro area that brings in artists from around the country, around the world on a regular basis.
Great, thank you. And I think this is kind of a statement, but kind of feeds into that. I think it's in Peru where a shop like Fiberspace wraps trees in innovative knitting, another way to decorate the city. I don't know, Randy, if you have heard about that?
Yeah, there's a number of cities that have done that where they, I think it's called like knit bombing or something
yarn
like
bombing,
that.
yeah.
Yarn bombing. And, you know, knitters get together and they wrap a tree or a phone pole or something like that. It's colorful. You know, I know people have done, you know, parts of bridges and that type of thing. So, yeah, you can see
We
that.
did one last year at the Torpedo Factory.
I think
So yeah,
Pittsburgh
a
did
call out
a
to
bridge.
artists, a call out to artists for micro grants or special opportunity grants that the city does. If you want to make that happen, we'd love for you to apply for something like that in the future.
This question for Randy, can you, we'll need the glasses, can you keep us posted on the Senate vote for IRAs for 2014? Means a lot.
Yeah, so that's related to the tax benefits that you get when you make your contributions to nonprofits. And so that's something we're working on, preserving those, keeping the value on those. And we'll make sure we push those, you know, data and information. And when it's time to take action down through the arts councils. Let me tell you about the way we do this, though, is through our Arts Action Fund. And that's the sort of the political arm of Americans for the Arts. And so if you go to artsactionfund.org, you can keep up. If that's an issue or any of these arts funding issues are important to you, it's free, there's information, there's a way to stay involved and mobilized when it's time to get mobilized. So Yeah, and that's very important. Individuals are really the largest contributors that help make the arts happen. Obviously, they attend, we buy tickets, but then amongst private sector, philanthropy, contributions, government, they're the largest piece of all that. So, and people are constantly staying on top of those tax benefit issues, as are we.
I think as someone who works for the Chamber of Commerce, I found, it's a business, and I know our board member out here, we're going to keep that in mind. Eric, where will the Torpedo Factory be in 2020? Or Matt
Wow,
also?
great question.
Same address.
Yeah, it's safe to say we'll be in the same building. I hope that we will have increased our visitorship substantially. It will be hard to do considering we already attract 500,000 people, but I think the goal will be to continue to grow, to bring in more younger artists, more diverse artists, artists working in new forms that aren't currently in the building, that we will have new ways for the public to engage with the organization. We will have renovated by that time. There may be some changes. We're talking about maybe reorienting the building so that the pier side is the quote-unquote front entrance of the organization. Maybe opening up out onto the waterfront in a more proactive way so that people can engage as they're walking by and that art can actually spill out of the building. A lot of times people walk by our building and they don't even know it's an art center. They're like, I've been walking by that building 30 years and I didn't know what was in there. So really making that connection that we have a variety of ways for people to participate in the arts.
Thank you. Where was Matt? What happened with the city's desire for more revenue from the Torpedo Factory? Or maybe that's both?
Do you want to start off with that one, Eric?
Yeah, I think we're always looking at ways to increase our revenue. We're challenged in the fact that we are talking about artists that don't necessarily make a huge amount of money off the sale of their art. As valuable as it is to our economy, it's not necessarily super profitable. We're looking at, our building is free, which I think is very, very important. We are in a town full of free cultural amenities, starting with the Smithsonian, and that's very hard to compete with. We are very committed at the moment to being free, although we have had conversations about the need to charge admission potentially down the road. We're trying to keep our artists' rent reasonable. We're looking at increasing our facility rentals, our gift shop revenue. We're looking at all kinds of financial models, but there's really no silver bullet. It's a combination of things that will keep us financially viable.
And I will say that as on the commission, I know that most arts organizations, this is something that's always a challenge. How to have that revenue while still providing things that the city citizens can take part in. And that's definitely a shout out to our grants, and the finances that the city offers are essential to these organizations, as well as private donor support. I definitely know that's something where a lot of organizations, that is a challenge. And anything that citizens can do to be proactive in that, or anything arts organizations can do to reach out for more donors is important, and something that I think where we could grow.
Great. Thank you. Randy, how are communities developing innovative strategies for funding the arts?
Cities, and I think at the local level, we see the most interesting different kinds of funding mechanisms. A very common one is dedicating a portion of the hotel tax to arts and culture, and the idea being that people come, they stay in the city as a result of arts and culture, and that's the product, and we all love the golden eggs, but we got to remember, we got to keep feeding the goose, right? So that's one way to do it. And then the beautiful thing about that is, we're dinging the out-of-towner. St. Louis passed their hotel tax, and by public referendum, and they had a great slogan: "You never paid it, and you never will." So Denver, metropolitan area of Denver, they increased the voters increased the sales tax on themselves by 1/10 of 1%. 1% to fund arts and culture. Generates over $40 million a year to their arts and cultural organizations. Some communities use property taxes. So those local option taxes, those dedicated revenues, are certainly one of the very innovative ways that we see it happening.
I would add too that Alexandria actually has on the books a admissions tax, which is a 50-cent surcharge on tickets to admission to entertainment venues, which primarily are Birchmere, a music venue, and the movie theaters. It generates almost $1 million a year that goes into the general fund. I know a lot of other communities around the country have similar taxes that are designated and earmarked specifically for arts and cultural activities.
Great.
That is true.
Last question, and it's to all of you. Start with the person with the best socks and go down.
Yeah, that's got to be me.
That's probably.
I have the polka dots, though.
There you
Yeah,
go.
right, it's true.
What's the most exciting arts project you've seen lately?
You get to
Well,
go
I think it's pretty easy, and I'm looking at Diane. I think we have to say the Mobile Art Lab is pretty exciting, and yeah, let's give her a big hand. It has brought a sense of mobility to the arts community. It's about bringing the arts to where people are and engaging them in very tangible, hands-on ways. We're very proud to partner with them. I think we have an amazing diversity of arts organizations. We see it all the time in the Arts Forum, from the Harmonizers to the Metro Stage to Alexandria Symphony Orchestra. We're so lucky to have Little Theater. They're all flooding into my mind now, but we have, for a community of our size, we have an incredible, rich array of cultural offerings, and we're very, very fortunate.
Well, I'd say that the latest one that was the most inspirational for me was definitely the dedication of the Contrabands in Friedman Cemetery. If you didn't get a chance to see the dedication, it was extremely inspirational. Words cannot express having the city chorus, as well as a number of other choristers there, handbell ringers to begin the tribute. Congressman Moran spoke. The amount of energy in that space with the dedication was phenomenal. So that is definitely a memorial you need to stop by. And it's exciting that it's just been dedicated, because one of the things that the city is moving toward with the public art plan is that connecting history with now. And we have a unique opportunity for that in Alexandria. And so that is definitely one that's amazing for me.
Yeah, that's appropriate. I think for me, and this is actually things I've seen in several cities, I feel like I've been cruising through a lot of schools, and we're seeing a lot of turnaround arts kind of programs. That's a major national initiative, but I've been in low-performing schools that have made an aggressive integration of the arts into the education system, and dropout rates have dropped, test scores, academic performance has soared. But you go into these schools, and in several, Illinois, Indiana, California, and just a number of places, and there's just like an incredible energy there. And you've just got a building full of people, young people as well as teachers, who are just so happy to be there, and just a palpable energy. And so that gives me great hope for our the young people today and our future for tomorrow.
Great. Thank you all so much. Let's have another round of applause for Randy, Matthew, and Eric, our outstanding panel.
Thank you.
And Rosalind, Alan, Sherry, thank you so much for producing an excellent program. And thank you all for coming. I hope you will join Agenda next month on October 27th for No Outlet, Fixing Alexandria's Sewers. I think we had some artistic ideas earlier today. But we're going to be looking at Alexandria's combined sewer system, which dates to the 1890s, and from time to time still dumps raw sewage into the Potomac. And we'll ask our panelists what needs to be done and what it will cost. Please invite your friends, bring people who might be interested, and members will be receiving email invitations the first Monday of the month. Again, thank you for joining us. We're stopping a little bit early so everyone has time to visit the tables in the back. And as a reminder, when you leave, you need to go up 2 floors to level 1 to exit the building. Enjoy the displays, and gentlemen, if I could get a sock picture, I think it may be Agenda Alexandria art.